Good afternoon, welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 526, and today we'll be covering Marnice from the perspective of evolution, de-evolution, and evolution. And the folks that we're having on today is Master Rocky, Master Mike, and they will go into that further. If you're watching, tell us where you're watching from and smash that like button. And if you have questions, I will jot them down. But if they're interrupting or they're not really congruent to what I'm talking about, not to interrupt the flow of the conversation, I may not insert them right away, but I will, I promise. Also, we have a sponsor. How exciting. So, our sponsor is Steve Perlman, his website. But before I get into that, he just released a new book, Martial Theory, and the subsequent workbook, Martial Theory Workbook. And here are the books. They're currently available on Amazon. Here's the book here, Martial Theory. And the workbook, also available on Amazon, is here. So, what makes this book unique? Okay. Is a martial arts classic, Martial Theory. Gone are the age of old texts of exploring a singular stylistic focus or a recipe book on techniques. Instead, Dr. Perlman has authored a first book of its kind on tactics and precepts that cross all boundaries of style. This book truly liberates the reader from the classical mess. I don't care if you're into FMA, traditional karate, Krav Maga, MMA, BJJ, it doesn't matter. Believe me when I tell you that Martial Theory and the Martial Theory Workbook, if you're up for the challenge, will take your understanding of your martial arts to an entirely new level. You can find the Martial Theory and the Workbook on Amazon in paperbook, ebook, and audiobook formats. But give me just a few seconds to tell you about the other Martial Theory University Online. MTU Online is where you can learn from senior instructors who take concepts from the book and put them into action in their own styles. These are instructional videos every week, new instructors every month, discussion forums, live events, Q&A with Dr. Perlman, and more. I believe in it so much that I'm an instructor there too. So when you sign up for the Martial Theory, CapitalU.com, you will get 20% off if you reference that you saw it on here from FMA Discussion Podcast in there. So do check it out. Once again, that's Martial Theory, CapitalU.com. And again, here are the books. Workbook and the book. Again, Amazon, get them in audio format, ebook, or the hard copies. All right, without further ado, here are our guests today. And again, if you missed it, we'll be talking about de-evolution, evolution, and Marnice in the early years. And without further ado, here is Mike and Rocky. Hey, guys.
How's it going?
Hello.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. We've been trying to coordinate this for some time, and we finally are making it happen, so which is a great thing. In the chat, well, first, I guess let's just get some for folks that maybe have not seen the prior episodes with you, Mike, and all that. Let's just get a quick background of each of you as far as your martial arts journey, and specifically also when you started in Marnice. So let's start with Rocky first.
When I started Marnice,
or just martial arts general, just your general martial arts background and when you started Marnice.
Mike and I have like a kind of a bizarre background because it's very similar, even though we were 2,000 miles apart. I started with my father in boxing when I was about 6, and he was a judo master and a catch wrestler and Ukrainian grappler. And so I started, when I was like 6 years old doing that stuff. And then I did Tung Sudo, but they didn't have kitty black belts back then. So I was like a first up red belt for like 7 years, 8 years, something like that. The first stick stuff that I started with was with Remy. Believe it or not, I was at I caught him at tournaments. And I mentioned this on a podcast that Mike and I were on before, that I saw this guy doing stuff with his sticks, and I was watching him, and he just come up and says, "Oh, would you like to learn this?" And he showed me what was single Sinwali. So I went home and showed my dad that I said, this Chinese guy showed me how to do it. Because I didn't know. So, like 8, 9 years old. I don't know the difference between Chinese or Filipino or whatever. And the funny thing is my brother would take me to, my older brother would take me to tournaments. And like a month later, I thought, I went up to him again and I said, hey, professor, I learned this I study. And he just gave me the dirtiest look, and he's like, I don't know who you are. Turned out it was Leo. I had confused, I don't know how, because one is, 4 foot tall and the other one's, 5 foot tall, but, and heavier. But, as a kid, so, yeah, I kind of got introduced to Paquita Tercia accidentally because I thought I was talking to Remy, and I wanted to show him how much I had practiced the single Sinwali that he showed me. And then, of course, he told me I was doing it wrong, so when I went back to Remy, Remy said, who says you're doing this wrong? So that went back and forth for a while. But there was no modernist schools in Michigan at the time, so I was learning from him at seminars. This would have been like probably like 79-ish,
Wow. How old
something
were
like
you?
this, 80. I was about uh, 79. I would have been about 9, 10 years old, 11 years old.
9, 10 years old.
Yeah, and then well, I was 15 when Mike. Uh, it wasn't Mike directly, but I don't know who Mike was, because again, I was just a kid. I don't know who he was working with, but they dragged me from Michigan to go and help put the first summer camp together, and I was down there for like a week before. And but yeah, it just, there was nobody teaching, so I got what I could get. And then I started training in some Wing Chun Do, and they were doing Villabros Kali, and I was doing that when I was about 12, 13 years old. So I was learning that, but I got what I could get. And
Yeah.
then Remy took a liking to my dad, because my dad taught Remy a lot of his ground fighting. My dad would teach Remy wrestling and stuff, and judo and stuff like that, and they eat a lot of ice cream together and stuff, and so they like to hang out together. And so when Remy was trying to hide from people because it was just getting too stressful, he would hang out at my parents' house when I was a kid. He'd come watch me play football and stuff, and we'd train before I go to school and train after school and stuff. So,
Oh, wow.
but yeah, I'm not as old as Mike. Mike, he he doesn't get enough credit. He really doesn't. All this stuff that we see, heck, even in the other FMA stuff. I mean, their summer camps were, what they call a summer camp was, a 3-hour seminar twice a day at some Hilton hotel. Mike put on the real summer camp in the mountains for 2 weeks. No cars, hardly any electricity. you know?
No
So,
cell phones back in the day
no,
either.
oh yeah,
Yeah, right, right. True camping. Wow, wow.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, so you start 79. Wow, wow, wow. You were 8, 9, or 10 years old. Wow.
yeah. It was around 79-ish. I wasn't old enough to drive. I know that, so because my brother had to
Still
take me
though,
on
that's. I mean,
bikes.
that's. I mean, that's really early. And Mike, you started like when in the 70s? When?
Well, with Ramy, I started around that time. I had the same background that Rocky in terms of my dad was a wrestler in college and a boxer in the Navy during World War II. I'm a little older. My dad was older, and then I'm older than Rocky on top of that, so I'm ancient. But um, when I was a kid, a little kid, the basic, dad, kid, son, boxing, wrestling, messing around, getting some basics down there. I didn't really get seriously into martial arts until I moved. I grew up in San Francisco, Silicon Valley now. Um, but I grew up in this area and I moved to LA. And when I moved to LA, LA was a lot more intense. I lived in Hollywood, so it was really a raunchy kind of type of year. And I was recommended to a friend of mine who taught Taekwondo, and so I studied with him for a number of years. I met Remy about the same time, 78, 77, 8, 9, right around that time period. And started, we were the LA location for Remy. There were other Filipino martial artists around at the time. Notably, Dan Inosanto had his dojo out in Culver City or whatever that area was. But I was in Hollywood, downtown Hollywood, my
Mhm.
dojo. And so I was teaching Taekwondo, and I met Remy and started going to some of the regional tournaments, San Francisco, Chicago, different areas with Remy, doing demonstrations and being involved in that aspect of it. And so from there, I got involved with the seminar circuit with Ramy and getting out there and making this novel nobody had ever seen sticks at
Mm.
all. So we would walk in and do a demo and or jump right into a seminar. Ramy was always good. He'd just stop and start teaching people. Pretty much almost walking down the street. It's
Hey,
amazing.
by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
um, interesting. So I'm just trying to think where we get piggyback from here because I think you guys have some fascinating perspectives, not just coming from the time frame you guys came from, but as Rocky put it, which we're going to really get into, the evolution and de-evolution. So, Rocky, you made a comment before we went on that before Minor Niece came to the States, before I finish it, let me turn it over to you because you obviously know better than me. So, what was going on as far as Minor Niece over in PH?
Now that I couldn't tell you because I was so young back then. What I was talking about was even at a young age, I saw, like, let's take the first summer camp that Mike put together, '83. It was 2 weeks long.
Two.
Two, and
He's frozen. And
he's
so
also frozen.
yes, well, to fill in the blank there, it was a 2 week summer camp. Some attendees came for both weeks and they got a basic instructor certificate out of it. Some came for 1 week and they got intensive training. But we lived, ate, and breathed it. It was a summer camp for boys that had been we took out of mothballs. So it had been vacant for a few years. We dragged a team of guys down from my partner's dojo in Michigan, and we had a crew that came out 10 days before the start of the workshop of the
Is
summer
that
camp.
what Rocky was referencing? Like he
That's
was.
what refuge. Yeah, Rocky was when he was 15 at the time, and we dragged a bunch of teenagers down. Rocky was one of them, working hard. And the trade was that they worked and set up this. Worked and set it up, and they got to stay for the 2 weeks. And so we did the whole thing: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We did sessions all day into the night. You'd hear sticks clacking at 2 in the morning. We it was very intense and but great. It was fantastic. It was a lifelong experience,
Yeah.
and but it was a
Sorry
true
about that,
camp.
guys.
The cabins were the 1930s WPA style boys camp with plywood walls and screen windows with no window, just open screens
And
and
snakes,
snakes, critters,
which I don't like.
Yeah.
plenty of critters. It was other than just the people, but it was,
Siamese.
an incredible mix. And it was again, it was a 1 week or 2 week, depending upon the person coming in for the tuition. So Rocky was referring to that as, and I'll turn it back to Rocky because you had your train of thought.
Yeah, like I said, I was too young. I've never even been to the Philippines. Which, of course, that's nowadays that's a big thing. Oh, you haven't been to the Philippines? Well, to be honest, all the masters are over here anyway, so what difference does it make? Um, but what what I meant by um, and I'm sure Mike can attest to this, the way Remy trained you before the summer camps and seminars became his entire life, his entire
Mm.
existence, his pay, the way he paid his bills and stuff. It was a different, he worked on body mechanics. You were learning parts of Moncal and Merengue's Balintawak, and you didn't even know it because he didn't call it that. But once, like myself, I just bugged him all the time. I was like, Remy, what made you a fighter? What made you a fighter? And so by about 83, 82, 83, I was doing very little modern race with Remy. We were always doing Balintawak. We were always doing, some of the stuff that made him a fighter. But what I was kind of getting at was, um, after that first summer camp, and then everybody wanted to do summer camps. They wanted to do seminars and summer camps. Remy realized that yes, it's called modern armies because it was, and and I know somebody's going to slam me for this, but I'm just using it for lack of better words. It was slightly watered down versus traditional because he wanted to teach it to the masses. But then when the summer camps got big, it got watered down even more. And that's why when you find guys like Mike and some of the older people that were around, Abundio Salazar, okay,
Mm.
he don't look nothing like any other modern armies person. And it's not just because of what he does with his, from his father and stuff. It's because when he did modern armies, he was doing it in the 70s. And it still had the footwork, and it was still primarily a linear art, versus from its Balintawak heritage, instead of like a lot of the side stepping that they do in Pakiti and a lot of the angular work. They don't do that. And so when the seminars came about, and Remy had to even go, oh man, gee, I can't teach, you know, footwork. I can't. They're paying me for 8 hours of training. I can't spend 6 of it on how to step forward and back, forward and back, forward and back.
Mm.
So that's why I say, what people call Dickadina nowadays is not the Dickadina I learned. Dickadina started off with footwork, how to lean. It wasn't just doing single Sinwali and then you break into this thing that they call semi-spark. Dickadina came in off of a thrust. It came in off of a reverse thrust. It came off of a puño. It came in off. You could start your semi-sparring from any angle of attack. And
Yeah.
then he got away from that because people are getting hurt. They don't have enough time in
Mm.
a seminar. And then Monong Ted and I years ago were talking about this. Teddy Bouet, the Grandmaster of original Balintawak. When Bobby brought, I like to say this all the time, and again, I know this really irritates a lot of modern people. And I've never met the man, never worked with him. I think there's a little rift there because who I trained with, I'm not sure. But what Bobby Taboada teaches is what modern Arnis kind of used to be, and somehow Bobby was able to keep it more aggressive, to keep some body mechanics in it, to
Mm.
teach power development and stuff. And Remy's kind of got away from that. But then I think the best thing that happened to Remy towards the end was when Bobby came to America, because it kind of made Remy step his game up a little more, you
Ah,
know.
I just
And
okay.
so he started. Now he and I had so many fights and arguments. That by then he didn't want anybody doing Balintawak with me, so he would always try to bypass me and send him to Teddy Bouet here in Michigan.
Mm.
And Teddy in turn a lot of times would just send him right back to me when Remy was gone, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, so it evolved into this great thing that you could teach people to the masses and still be fairly good and do body mechanics and stuff. But then when people just wanted so much of it because of these seminars and these summer camps, and Mike is the guy who started all this. It's his fault. They everybody they wanted more and more and more and more, and the man can only give you so much, so he had to
Right.
pick and choose what he could teach and what he couldn't teach. And that's also when he started calling it um, the Filipino art of self-defense.
Mm.
See, Remy never claimed to teach.
Mm-hmm.
He never said he was teaching escrimadores. And that's where a lot of the other guys from other arts would jump on his ass, because his guys go out and say that they were escrimadores. No, buddy, you're not an escrimador. You have some very basic techniques.
I
You're
think
pretty good
that's
at
even worse
self-defense.
today, though, with this, with the being the secondary or tertiary program. You know what I mean? I don't want to digress here, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, yes. Um, I want to just back up because you brought some really interesting things I've not heard on previous Marnie's centric interviews. So when he was over there, it was more of a fighting art. I know you're young, and then when he came over here, did he try to keep it as a fighting art? But because of just the mass and quick growth of him, is that when it started to kind of like de-evolution? Or
I think that's yeah, and I think Mike can say that better
Yeah,
than me because he was in his teens or early 20s when I was, 12 or whatever. So,
yeah,
he probably saw it more than I even did. I mean, I had the luxury of Remy basically lived with my parents for like 9 years. Okay. 3, 4 months out of the year, he would stay at my mom and dad's place,
mm,
and when he was trying to hide from people, whether it be an ex-wife, a lawyer, a girlfriend,
oh
or
yeah,
just wanting some time to himself,
yeah.
he would stay there. But yeah, I think Mike could probably tell that.
Well,
He's
we,
got a
we,
better
we had
handle on it than me.
we had a challenge when Remy was starting out because traditionally our niece was taught father to son, one on one. I
mm,
mean, that you learned one on one. It was intensive in training. I mean, that's how I learned. I mean, I'd be at home. I'd be walking down the steps, and Remy would attack me, and next thing I knew, we were doing a drill, or I was flat on the ground, one of the two. But um, the challenge was adapting it, taking the techniques and body mechanics and principles, and putting that in a format um, that a group of people could learn. Now, we weren't training like the Chinese videos that you see where 500 people are doing the same move in complete
yeah.
perfect coordination. It was not that Chinese school kind of training, but he had to get it across to people in a short period of time, with not a lot of time. Like Rocky said, you couldn't spend 6 hours working on a stance, but that's what a lot of people needed. Now, we were piggybacking off of experience, so that whether it was a Taekwondo school or a Kung Fu school or
Mm.
an Aikido school, we were piggybacking off of their basics.
As opposed to him resorting to what he, for instance, did in the Philippines.
Yeah, correct. A lot of the basic, he would bypass the basics depending upon how competent they
Ah,
were.
okay.
So we would go directly into what was different. So the stick technique, or some school might be familiar with knives. Okay, well, we showed them how we were working with the stick, and then the empty hand applications, or the Aikido guys, couldn't see a kick to save their life. They're blind from the waist down. So basically, Remy we'd wind up with little trips and short kicks and all the things to add to it, giving them a flavor of something that they didn't have. But as the years went by, we were in a sense a victim of our own success, because we'd have seminars and then we'd come back to that area. He came back a lot and repeat the seminar and repeat the seminar. And eventually, he was running out of material, so to speak, because you hit a limit on what that group of people understood in terms of,
Or okay.
and a
Uh,
limit on what their base art was providing for the foundation.
got
And
it.
so then it's after that it started getting a little more what's the word, flexible in the way that things were done.
Okay.
Now, but we at the same time we were promoting. This was the early '80s, was when I did a whole bunch of articles for Black Belt Magazine, Karate Illustrated. We did the book. He was Instructor of the Year, all kinds of stuff like that, which was getting the name and familiarity out there. So now more people were coming in wanting more seminars, which was great. But it approached it. It was light years away from father teaching son.
From that intimate, the footwork, you're getting the
Correct.
base core material, whether you like it or not. Not the
Right. Right.
formats. Like Rocky said, sort of de-evolving it for the masses. I mean, you
I've
were getting
taught I've taught hundreds of people at the University of Indiana. I've taught hundreds of people here in large seminars. I teach now. I have my classes are about 8 people. That's by choice, because for me, that's a good number that I can work hand on hand. They've got all their partners. We can drill, we can work, we can exercise, we can get in depth. But it's still a step away from just one on one. But it's as close as I can get.
it's better than 40.
40 or 50 or 100 people at
So do
once.
you, with that number in mind, what you're trying to achieve there, are you trying to go back to what he initially was doing or what you initially saw from like day one, for instance?
Well, for me, it's a modification because Ramey's English was good but not perfect. Ramey was really good at showing and demonstrating a technique, but it was more like you do this, you do it like this, you do this, you do that. No, 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 do this, do that.
Do it like this.
Yeah, do it like this. No, 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 that's wrong. Do it like this. And he'd show you the same thing. You go, what? Okay. So my role in those early years was translating what he was trying to communicate in terms of going from the physical movement that he was doing to what's the principle behind that movement? Why are we going side to side? Why is the hand checking? Why is this hand doing that? What's the body movement mechanic on that? He wasn't teaching the mechanics, he was teaching the techniques and the concepts. So on the seminar circuit, the concepts were big. You do, quote, the flow, you do decadena, you do senawalis, you do knife work, you do different things. He was teaching the 6-count drills, the sombratas. Okay, great. But he was never really big on the explanation to why. So for me, I'm teaching not a style. I'm not teaching Arnis as a style, holistic interpretation. I'm teaching it as a system. And with the understanding that, you want to dance ballet, you learn how to dance, but you can dance ballet or you can square dance or you can, do hip hop, but it's all dance. It's based on the same body mechanics, the same 2 arms and 2 legs and body shifting and movement. So I've moved, I'm kind of like frozen in time in a sense, because like Rocky said, things changed a lot after 83, 84. And I'm rooted in everything up to that point. Plus, having taught enough people since then that you can have to take a beginner to somebody advanced and get them to understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Going back to Rocky. So I understand. I understand the why. Coming over here, you're going to schools. You got audience. You can't spend 8 hours, like you were saying, on footwork or positioning and etc. Do you think that was a disservice overall at that time frame to the art in particular?
Um, you know, the, if there was any type of disservice, to be honest, it was more the people jockeying for position that did the disservice. They, um, I like I said, I grew up in just outside of Detroit, Michigan. Erwin Bellardo was here, Roberto Hancock, Pete Kenzanetti, all these guys that were they used to fight at the Playboy Club for Leo Guy. They were all Kita Tercia guys, and there was a couple of Lanata people, a couple of Lanata people
Renata. Mm-hmm.
from the East Coast there, and
Yeah.
they made their way up here to Michigan. But so as I got into my teens, and I was, I boxed, I fought a little bit out of the Kronk gym, and I started boxing at Waddell Community Center when I was, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, and so I was always used to that heavy contact, and I loved to fight full contact. And I begged people back in the '80s to do full contact. When I saw what they were doing at the Playboy Club and stuff, and how Irwin was already, this would be pre-Dog Brothers, okay? How Irwin was already messing around with the fencing masks and hardly anything else on, and so, I beg, and that was a major fight that I had with Remy because he didn't like that. And, so the disservice, I think, it was a kind of a 2-way street. He was doing what he had to do. He wanted to get the art out. Let's face it. I tell people this all the time. Remy is probably the most famous martial artist in the world that never made a movie. Okay. Take the movies from Chuck, from Steven Seagal, and all these guys. Would you ever heard of them? Remy has been on a magazine more times since he's passed away than a lot of these guys have been on in their entire life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
He just had this personality that was larger than life. And like Mike said, I mean, he'd wake me up. I mean, I'm on a school day, and I'm in junior high, and he's waking me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Rocky, we train. Rocky, we train. It's like,
Yeah.
I gotta go to school in a couple hours here, and
Mhm.
but that's the way he was.
Mhm.
If you wanted to kiss his ass, he'd let you kiss his ass all day long. If you wanted to learn, and you showed you wanted to learn, he would teach you all day long.
Mhm.
Problem is, there's a lot more people that would rather just kiss the ass than to put in the
and
work.
actually put in the work and all that. Just backing up
And so
to
that's your kind of your
rest of this.
disservice. Was he was so nice to people. He wanted to spread the art. Remy would never tell anybody you don't have it. He's
No.
always, you got it, man. You got it, man. Oh, you got it, man. No matter how bad you sucked, he would say, you got it, man. And
There's a
so
problem.
there's a huge problem when you have the grandmaster telling people that there's something that they
Because
aren't.
that's just going to go down, and now they're not going to have high expectations of their students because look how they. Yeah, that's a bad.
And as much as you've been around the Filipino arts, I mean, I've been out of it for a lot of years. I kind of wanted to touch on something Mike said. He kind of went back to like the 8 people. It's funny because so many people out there now would say, well, he's a failure. He only has 8 students. He's only got 6. Well, yeah, you got 50 students. You got 500 students, but none of them are any good.
But here's the thing, though, quality control. I can tell you that just from. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say the systems and all that for the sake of that, but I can tell you just from all the interviews I've done, I could tell you who's got quality control and who's
Mm-hmm.
is just not even.
When I first started teaching Balintawak, I got a bunch of crap on this martial talk because everybody was like saying that I was saying I was something that I wasn't. Because Teddy, yeah, first of all, in original Balintawak, there are no senior masters. There's no masters. I don't know where people are coming up with all this stuff. Okay, when you trained under Ted, you were either a student or you weren't. That's all there was. And then he had one of us that I know for sure because it was me. Possibly Dave Hatch might have been the second person that he sent students to. That's how you knew you made it because he hadn't retired yet. He didn't have enough time. And when people wanted to train, he would send them to people who he thought was qualified to teach. And I was one of them. He sent me,
But there was
a
this.
couple dozen people.
But there
Well,
says a lot.
when I first started teaching, I said, Teddy, I want to have a class. He said, well, how many people? I said, like 15. 15? Um, 10. 10? I'm like, Jesus Christ, Ted, I mean, how about 5? He goes, okay, five would be good because he did not want to lose that quality control,
Mhm.
Yeah, for
And
having.
so I promised him that I would never teach it in a seminar, which that
Mm,
was a big mistake on my part because now everybody's teaching his art in the seminars.
Yeah. Whoops.
uh, but again, just to touch on that, the failure was kind of a reciprocating type thing. Remy was a little bit at fault with it. There were also people that knew what they were doing. They
they
knew
took
they
advantage.
and took advantage of him being so nice.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
tell you something. If you had a Taekwondo school with 200 people,
You had a black belt.
oh, you were black belt. You
You,
were
if you had 200 people for seminars, you were a black belt.
yeah, you were black belt. You were instant black belt. And you know, um, but he kind of did, that first camp. Again, that was some of the problems. Remy and I fought like father and son. I mean, we argued. We wouldn't talk to each other for a while, and then I never did talk to him. I didn't talk to him quit talking to him about 5 years before he passed away, and we never reconciled. Which I regret to some extent. But he's also a man that talked me into dropping out of college, taking an engineering job at Ford Motor Company because I was going to run his organization and we were going to be as big as World Taekwondo and all that stuff. And Mike has run into that a little bit when he did
Yeah.
the American Arnis. He
Mhm.
tells you to do the American Arnis. You do it. You put this pretty good thing, and then bam, you're in trouble for doing it.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
um, yeah, it's
Well, there's a story there, but that's,
yeah, yeah, it's yeah. That's actually an hour-long
Remy
story. Just
was
you
very
and Jeff Arnold.
yeah. Well, Remy was very diplomatic about. I say broadly diplomatic about ranking and about diplomas and certificates. There's one story where he was there was a guy in California, Central California, who was doing a lot of seminars and getting a lot of people and having Remy come back frequently, and the guy was pushing Remy for some sort of certification or whatever, and Remy says, "Okay, you know what? You are the regional director of
Yeah,
Modern Art International Federation of the Philippines, of California, of Calaveras County, whatever it was,
You
and
got
you're
to
going
hold
to give
America's
you a
flag.
certificate." Yeah, and it meant nothing,
yeah,
really.
Yeah.
yeah,
But he was, he understood that there was an ego that needed a little boosting
That
there.
needed some fueling, so he
And
kind of
but
spread
he
it
was
wide.
looking at his seminar business and going, "This guy is cranking people out and making me money, and I want to come back."
yeah.
So there's in the Filipino culture, it's very understood as a crossroads of so many cultures and societies for so many years, how to survive,
Mm.
how to get along with oppressors, how to undermine them, how to be a guerrilla, and
Interesting.
how to be diplomatic. And basically, I've learned in my later years how to resolve conflicts much better. My wife is Filipino, so basically, I'm stuck with it forever.
Mm.
Um, but bottom line is the culture. And, um, there's always a smile on the face, and there may or may not be a dagger behind the back. So you have to be aware of the situation. That's just survival. And Ramey was very good at diagnosing who was going to be to the benefit of his business and what he was trying to do. So that's the business side of it. We talk about the art, and like Rocky said, he was a fighter, but he also very much and very clearly saw what the market was ready to do, and that's
And
part of
was
the
it ready
evolution.
for the fighting, right?
Yeah, well, but that's part of the evolution. We had to, I don't want to say water it down, but we had to get broad principles that people could absorb in a presentation,
Mm.
whether it was 3 hours or 3 days, or in the case of 2 weeks. We had to be very aware of what would fit for that market and those people and what they needed. So everybody would walk out with a positive feeling and a smile on their face and saying, "Our modern Arnis is great." Okay. But the flip side of it was, yeah, the depth of training wasn't there. That's why I had my dojo. Remy came and lived with me for a year too, Rocky, and I had my dojo, and I set up another separate training floor. And at the time it started out, I was teaching Taekwondo on one side, and I was teaching Arnis on my other training floor.
Mm.
And but basically they melded because as time went by, and this is what I had the conversation I had with Remy. I said, "Remy," and the same thing with my partner Jeff Arnold in Michigan. We're teaching Taekwondo separately from Arnis, but they're, as he says, they're all the same. So we had to build in and cover the basics and cover the curriculum that was addressed by other styles in that way. We weren't just coming in and doing a presentation. We weren't just coming in and doing a supplemental art. We were doing a complete thing that was self standalone, but it needed to be coordinated. So he says, "Yeah, you do that." So there we go.
Wow, wow. Jeff Owen says hi, by the way.
Well,
Well,
great guy. You should. You
he's
should.
watching, but I'm not sure why he can't comment. But I just want to at least let him know that he said that. Just going. So this is so fascinating, interesting. All right, I know there was a disservice as you explained, Rocky. Like people taking advantage, him maybe not setting clear, distinct lines in the sand, and a combination of both, of course. Do you think the present folks doing Amarnis today, do you think they've lost out, or by virtue of like what you saw, the evolution, de-evolution, do you think they're missing out today?
I think there's a large swath of them that don't have any idea what modern Arnis is, and they have extremely high belts. But then there's people that like in '83. I kind of started touching on this and got a little sidetracked. In '83, right after that summer camp, there was a guy named Don Zangy from Buffalo, New York. Okay,
Great
and
show.
he says, Remy says, Rocky, I'm 15. I just had my learner's permit, didn't have my license yet, And he's like, Rocky, isn't Buffalo just like 3 hours from Detroit or something? I'm like, well, yeah, I guess, Well, And he says, well, you start going to Buffalo, and I'm going to give Don Zangy his black belt. And I'm like, give it to him. It was at the first camp. And
Mhm.
he says, yeah, and Rocky, you'll go and you'll bring Don Zangy up. You do a small seminar for him and then spend time and bring him up to, where he should be. And that worked for a little while, but the problem is that then Remy would come in and do a seminar and obviously bring in a lot more people than I could bring in. And lo and behold, somebody from a bigger school would be there. Bigger Taekwondo or Ishinru. Ishinru was pretty big back then.
Mm.
And so, then you had all this infighting. And Buffalo was a mess. Just a freaking absolute mess.
Because of the amount of
Um,
Marnie schools.
the modern schools, yeah, everybody was just fighting over this, that, and the other. And then along comes Tim Hartman. Okay. Now, Tim, whether he says it or not, he saw that there were issues. And what he did, which was really smart, which I wish I would have done, was he just said, you know what? I'm just going to do what professor tells me to do, and I'm going to run this club the way I want to run it,
Mm.
and I'm going to come up with a curriculum, and I'm going to stick with it. And he has. And Tim and I have had arguments over the years. I had a lot of fun when he used to bring me in for seminars. Tim, great guy to hang out with and have a good time. But a lot of people, they have certain issues with him. But the thing you can't deny is he arguably has the most, outside of Dieter. He's got that monster organization in
In Germany, yeah.
Germany. I mean,
That's
I think he's
funded.
trying to conquer the entire Europe.
Yeah.
But he,
German.
but outside of that, Tim's got one of the most well put together, organized
Yeah. No. And
curriculums.
look at his team. Look at his
And
team.
yeah, and he's done very well at it, and it's because he got out of the he was smarter than some of us were when it came to the politics. He just kind of, now he created some politics after Professor died, but everybody did. But Tim just was like, you know, this is where everything's going wrong, and I'm not going to follow all that. And I'm going to have this. I'm going to do what Taekwondo and Ishiru and stuff does, but I'm going to do it with modern Arnis. And he did, and he's done a hell of a job. He's got a great organization.
So would you say, based on that and the order that you're putting that in, is he teaching what you believe the truest form of Marni's present day?
Oh, not even close, but it's a good form. Tim went out and did what a lot of us did. He saw that there were value in other things, and so he learned some Paquita Tercia. Yeah, heck, my buddy Jim Birchfield and I, when Tim was a brown belt, we tested Tim for his brown belt, I think it was, and his instructor was a student of mine. So John Bryant, he brought me in to do modern Ace and Balintawak back in like '89 or something like that,
Mm.
and he brought my buddy Jim Birchfield to come in and do Paquita Tercia, and Tim was soaking all that up and he was learning it, and so is it what I learned from Remy? No. Is it good? Yeah. Um, is it
So is it closer
is it well organized? Better than
than
Remy.
what? Yeah.
Way better than Remy ever organized anything. I mean,
Yeah.
Tim, he has a great system, and people are going to dog on him about certain things, and there's certain things he says and does that I don't agree with, but that's how everything is. That bothered me for so long that it almost cost me my marriage. That was part of we were supposed to get together almost a month ago, or 2 months ago, 3 months ago about this, and I was in the middle of something bad going on in my life, and some of that was because I fought depression for 25 years because of what Remy did to me. Saying I was going to run this organization, I was this, and then he taught me all this traditional, and I was a kid. I wasn't a man at the
Impressionable.
time
No, you're impressionable. Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that would stand up and say, "Hey, look, put it in writing, old man."
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah.
um, but you know, I think Modern East is going in the right direction now, to be
Oh, good.
honest.
Oh,
And I
good.
think I think it's because of people like Dan Anderson who came here to Michigan and picked the brains of Teddy Blewett. He's picked my brain a little bit over with Balintawak. First time Remy ever gave a demonstration on Balintawak was at Dan in the Sound Summer Camp in 1986. First time he ever even talked about it in public, and
Mm.
it and he was traumatized after he did it. He says, "I've been working with Rocky for years in Balintawak." He said, "This is the art that taught me how to fight when I was a kid." He said, "So I would like to show you." And there's all these white belts there in Olympia, Washington, or something like that, somewhere out on the West Coast. And he goes, "So Rocky and I are gonna." Well, thing is Remy hadn't done traditional Balintawak in a lot of years, and his timing was off. This was not on me. This was on the old man. He
Mm.
says, "Rocky, swing." So I swing. He counters and bam, splits my eye wide open.
Ooh.
And he says, "Don't turn around." Well, by then I turn around, I'm looking, and there's blood just coming out of my eye. And all these white belts are like, and Remy's like, "But we're not going to do Balintawak. This is why we don't do Balintawak." And that was the first time he ever talked about doing Balintawak or demonstrated it because he wanted people to see it, and then it backfired on him. I mean, he caught me right on it, right on the temple, just split my eye wide open.
Oh, man.
And
So,
but I think it's going in the right direction because Tim has played with Balintawak. He's done some training with Teddy.
mm,
I think he's played with Bobby Tabata and Danny Super Dan out there. He's like the most inquisitive person in the world. I mean, he just like
Yeah,
anybody that
Danny's great.
yeah. I mean, if you can teach, if you can flip somebody off, flip them a bird better than anybody else, Dan's going to be there and have you teach him how to flip somebody
how,
off.
how,
I
how,
mean, that's just the way he
how
is.
to flip somebody off better.
Yeah.
I'm glad
So,
to hear that you think it's going in the right direction. I think that's
but
refreshing to hear. Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of. I mean, man, I have guys right around me, 3 miles from me. I begged them to come train with me. They wouldn't train. Now, I did find out later, that Remy had a habit of saying, "Oh, Rocky is crazy. Do not entertain him." If he didn't want you training with somebody, he would say, "Do not entertain that person."
There was a lot of that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And
There was a lot
so
of
I
that.
have a guy, who's a master of slappy, happy, tappy, whatever it is that they do now, And I'm like begging this guy to come and train with me, but he won't come train with me, And it's like,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, it's the a couple years go by and he went from like brown belt to 6th degree black belt or something like that, or whatever it is. I don't keep any track.
Well, maybe because he was the end. It's just
I have more FaceTime than anybody on the planet with Remy,
yeah,
guaranteed,
I know, and
guaranteed.
I've heard.
And
Someone,
I'm a
yeah.
5th degree black belt. you know, so
Yeah, well, you didn't. I guess you didn't. I guess you didn't kiss enough blankety blank, right?
well, we fought. Like I said, we fought a lot. We
Yeah,
argued and fought constantly. He was like a father to me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He would we'd get in big old screaming matches and stuff. Not quite that bad as what he had with your partner, Jeff. Uh, when
Yeah.
he got his hands on Jeff, uh, it was lucky there were other people there because Remy may have gone to prison for that for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
Here's a question for both of you. What do you say? Okay, and this is just obviously I have no dog in this fight. I'm not a Martinese practitioner. My only knowledge of Martinese is from these interviews. And so just anybody who's watching, so it doesn't get misconstrued. So historically speaking, fighter over there, movement comes over here. We have to adapt to the bigger audience, seminar formats. Um, whether you want to use watered down or not, there's a de-evolution in there. Um, When did, with that all being said, when did the other evolution come into play? Not so much the Decadena, but the whole thing of Tappy Tappy versus Solo Sinawali.
I Mike can,
Mm,
I'm gonna get flamed if I
If,
tell.
if I don't
I
want to get, I don't want to put any of you guys. Yeah. So if
well,
you don't want to answer,
I'm a good one to address that slightly because basically I'm frozen in time. I never heard of FMA, never heard of Tappy Tappy. Actually, never heard of a link to walk for many years. So none of that was part of my history because there was no FMA. I started to hear about you know actually I hate to say it, but not jujitsu, ninjutsu was the big thing that we were competing against back in the early '80s. Stephen Hayes.
Stephen Hayes.
I actually did interviews with Stephen for the magazines. So I mean, that was big hit. I did a dozen articles on modern arnis for the magazines. But bottom line was that nobody knew what Filipino martial art. Well, there wasn't that as a frame, as a word was not.
as
I
a
don't know when that started. That started after MMA, I guess.
okay.
And Balintawak, I mean, I didn't hear of it for decades. Now, not traveling in the same circles as and being a little more self-contained, I should say. But there's always evolution. There's an old phrase, evolve or die. And Remy had to evolve what he did to work with the market, to work with the growing success of what he was doing. Politics aside, there were some people that were more supportive and more political than others. I'm a bad politician, so I'm the worst one to be talking about
Yeah.
politics. Naively and like you said, Rocky, get it in writing from the old man, even if it's on the back of a napkin. But that was impossible. So the evolution, Remy was very savvy. He did the big three with Wally and Dillman. He did a lot of smart stuff to keep the income coming in and keep his position. He was a fantastic martial artist. That is I almost consider that independent of that. Tappy Tappy, I watch it and I go, okay. Um, I know exactly where that came from. It's Remy. Well, you tap.
But is that the new measuring stick, though?
Well, Tappy Tappy kind of started again. The guy in the middle here. It's all his fault.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
he,
Wait. I
he,
thought
he,
I thought just the camps were his
he
fault.
well, that's where it came from. Is
Yeah.
the camps went like this was a camp, man. Like I said, you got to remember I'm 15 at the time, so I mean this was like camp, man. We're out in the
Mm,
mountains. I mean there's wild animals and shit, and
don't forget the
Mike
snakes.
Mike and snakes, and Mike and some people almost went to jail because of some stuff that happened at the camp with Remy with fighting
Destroyed.
in a local bar. I couldn't go. I was 15. The best thing that happened to me with that camp was I met a 28-year
Never
old girl when
mind.
I was 15. But anyways, what I'm getting at is
Statutory.
he. Yeah, on her part, not mine. Uh,
Just in case you wanted to know, folks.
but the thing is um, this was a 2-week camp, morning to night, and then within a couple of years, it went from 2 week to 1 week to 3 day. Okay, well, we spent hours and hours and hours doing Dicadena or semi sparring, whatever you want to call it, at the first camp because we had hours and hours and hours a day,
Oh, so good.
7 days a week. Okay,
All right.
I mean you're getting blisters on your hands, and you could always tell when Remy, if people pissed Remy off, what would he
Oh,
have him do? Twirl. Okay, we're going to twirl. We're going to twirl. He'd have you twirl for a half hour because you pissed him off. So he'd have the whole class. So everybody would get, blisters and stuff. But my point is he wanted to teach all that, but he couldn't teach it in a 3 day camp. So let's chuck out the footwork. Let's go to breaking in off a single Sinwali.
mhm.
Mhm.
Do this little tappy thing here, and we call it tappy tappy, and we say that it is the fundamental root of all of modern arnis. Well, it is, but
Wait. Is now, or did it replace something?
well, it replaced the footwork. It replaced the body mechanics. Whenever you see Remy, if you take a look at some of the old magazines, he's forever, like he'll have a stick in his hand here, okay, and he's clasping the other person's stick this way
Hmm.
on the arm, not grabbing it, clasping it, okay.
Mhm.
That was his block and lock from Monkow's Balintawak, okay. That was in. You just learned that through osmosis.
Mhm.
That's how he taught, was
Right.
through osmosis. And for me, it was great because I was a little kid. That when I started towing pseudo, I was 6. They didn't have kiddie classes back then. You can't tell a 6-year-old put 80% of your weight on your left foot, 20 on your.
Yeah.
Hell, I hardly knew my left from my right, let alone what 80% was. So learning through osmosis was great for me and for a lot of people. But when you don't have enough time to get that osmosis because it's gone from a 2-week camp, or he's here every month doing a seminar or two, to now coming only twice a year, so
Mm,
you have to follow him around. And there are very few people like Ty Boding and Dan Anderson and Kelly Warden and Tim Hartman that are going to follow or have the means to follow this person all over the place to learn. So yeah, it to me, tappy tappy. I mean, a lot of the guys are really good at it because they're just good martial artists.
hmm.
Like Brian. I can't never pronounce his last name.
Zelensky. Yeah.
Zelensky?
Zelensky. Yeah. When you watch him move, I mean, he moves great. But he's been doing it for so long. The you
Because
know the
that was basically the structure he learned around.
Yeah, I'm assuming because he's a master at tappy tappy, and um, it's like when Remy ran out of things,
He created them.
he created things.
Oh,
He's like, okay,
more is more. Okay.
yeah, these people pissed me off, so uh, I'm not no longer going to give out that rank. We'll go to this rank instead. Okay, so now there's masters of tappy tappy, there's datus, there's this, there's that, there's the other. It was all marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the thing is some people take it with a grain of salt, like Kelly Warden. I don't think Kelly gives a shit what you call him. He don't
I
care
don't
if you
think so
call him
either.
dad to Kelly, hey, numb nuts, whatever.
Yeah, but he's
Just
also, in my opinion, one of the most well-rounded.
exactly, exactly. See, so
So yeah,
he doesn't have to give a shit because he knows what he knows.
no argument. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the people that run their mouth the most are generally the people that,
Are the ones who are lacking stuff,
Yeah.
yeah,
one,
exactly.
whether
Yeah, it's
physically, emotionally, mentally. Right?
the guy that sits in the corner and never talks is the guy you got to worry about.
Watch out for. Yeah.
Yeah, what's that?
The
That
subtle
Marine.
ones.
It says, when you walk into a room, make sure you know how to kill every person in the room and
Hmm.
how to get out as fast as possible. I mean, that's the case. When you get a guy like Kelly, who's done an incredible amount of different things, and he's a street fighter. Um, and so yeah, the modern arnis is like any other art, I guess you would say. There are some phenomenal taekwondo guys out there. It's phenomenal, beat the hell out of you.
Sure.
And there are some jackass taekwondo guys out there that they've never thrown a kick with ill intent in their life. They've never thrown a punch with with bad intentions in their life. So how do they fight? Um, so I think that's where modern arnis is now. It's with the help of these coordinated guys, Dieter over in Europe. It's gotten much bigger. It's much more well known. It's without a doubt the largest of the Filipino arts. I mean,
I
without a
think it's
doubt.
the most last, and this was somebody called. This is not from me. It's somebody shared this with me. Status Quo has the most practitioners of all FMA arts.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that
Yeah,
because
If you told me that back in 1981, I wouldn't have believed you.
yeah. It probably was. Yeah, yeah. No, it has the most, and it makes sense. I mean, all the schools that
well,
he got into, Germany, what Dieter's doing over in Germany, and,
Yeah.
but
you
um,
know uh, his ability. I just want to touch on this because this is when when I first Remy sent me overseas when I was 17 because he couldn't leave the country. He was applying for his citizenship,
Oh, we know that.
and so he uh, I don't know if that's the rule that you can't go, but he didn't want to leave the country. So he says, Rocky, I want you to go to Sweden, and you know, so I ended up going to Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Austria, a bunch of places over to England. Um, but 2 years later, I went 2 years in a row, and then the third year, he was able to go because he got a citizenship. So my top student, Master Hal Edwards, and Remy and I, we went to Germany, and like Mike says, this man, we went into this cabbie hooked us up with this group of people, martial artists. He said, I know a club. I know a club. So we go there, and these people are like, they all look like Charles Manson or Jesus. Okay. They all had beards, white t shirt. The class starts, light comes on in the center room. They're walking around in a circle. Their instructor's in the middle, and they're chanting something in German. I don't know what the hell they're saying, you know? And we're looking at each other like, we're going to have to fight to get out of here, or something bad is going to happen. It ended up being the greatest group of guys you ever met. And Remy, none of them could speak any English, but Remy he just took over, and he would just do things, and they were drawn to him like a magnet, man. I mean, this guy could uh, he could communicate without saying a word, you know, and that was probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen in my life to this date. I've never seen anybody that just walked in off the street. They didn't know who we were. And he just took command, and they loved it. And afterwards they took us out to dinner, and I mean, it was just amazing, and because he could do that, you know, uh, he could get schools going places, in Germany and Sweden and Denmark and places like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, he had an uncanny ability, not only to walk in and communicate, but also to communicate and see what they had that would resonate and give them a piece of something that would make them go, ah. It was brilliant, and it was not verbal.
Yeah, because I go to Sweden. There's 320 people at a seminar. I'm 17. Only a couple of them speak English,
Wow.
and I'm like, oh man, So I muddled my way through, and they were all happy, and it set up future summer camps and seminars for Remy. But man, I struggled. I'm like,
17. Yeah, come
yeah,
on.
I'm like, are you getting this? Do you know what number one is? Number one, and it helped me out to be a better teacher. But the way he did it was like he knew these people his whole life. Like,
Yeah,
I've heard that many times on here. He just had that aura, that charisma, or that
yeah,
just.
there was something about him.
oh,
You
he
know,
had lots of practice.
I know I did have one other thing I tend to run on sometimes, but you said something about the flow. Mike said, back in the day we had Dicadina, the flow, some Sinwalis. And then basically, he'd be like, okay, you got 12 disarms. Next time I see you, I want you to do 2 disarms for each of the 12. And then next time he sees you, he goes, okay, next time I see you, I want you to have 5 disarms for each of the 12. So that's how you built your scenarios. Okay. So I strike and you do number one. Well, then I counter that number one. And that's how, so basically you're doing Balintawak. You just didn't realize it.
So the
Um,
Blinka was a default system, like right from the get go.
well, that was Remy's fighting art. That was, you know, he he didn't want people to seek out other things. So he always said, my grandfather, Jose, my father, he taught me this, and my grandfather taught me that. My father,
Yeah.
the vast majority of his fighting came from Moncau and Merengue, both students of Anshan.
Of
Moncau was left-handed, so that really suited Remy because Remy was a lefty, and
Oh yeah.
a lot of people didn't realize he was a lefty because his right hand was so freaking good that he never had to use his left. Very
Well,
very
if he's
seldom.
Balintawak, how did Marnie, like he just made up Marnies from it?
Well, because Balintawak, as it was taught back then, was taught basically one-on-one. How do
Yeah.
you can't support a family and come to America and do all
Uh,
and
But you also had the injury factor. And that's what
yeah.
Remy talked to me about. He says, people don't like to get hurt. And Actually, I trained a little with Sam Tendencia, who was a healer.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And Sam, and basically Sam said, he had a choice when he was a kid. His teacher, he was studying piano and he was studying arnis. And he would come to his piano lessons with his knuckles all beat up and swollen. And his piano teacher eventually said, you have to decide. You can do arnis or
Well,
you can
yeah,
do
yeah,
piano.
yeah,
You can't do both. So, bye bye piano for him.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
um, Remy was, um, as he explained to me, he learned the different arts and the different styles. You got 7,400 islands. You got variations of everything everywhere. It may be a family art, but it's a family art shared by several families. But then again, they all do it differently. Stylistically, it's infinite. But looking at the core systems and the core techniques, he was able to come up with some approaches that were not so damaging. Um, I rarely, to this day, I've got a bad knuckle that Remy fixed. But having said that, rarely did he hit and injure. Rarely. Rocky's got the split eye. I've got a knuckle. But bottom line is that's not how it would have been if you were studying in the old days in the Philippines. You would be beat up. You'd be black and blue. You'd have bad fingers because basically it was all contact. And if you got hit, it was your fault.
Mm.
That
When
was the perception. It's your fault. And he says, people don't want to get hurt. They don't. You have no
no,
students. So especially coming here to the States, where it was a foreign thing, you couldn't be teaching people.
You
And
start going in there whacking people's knuckles.
yeah,
yeah,
it just you would have no students real fast. So he learned how to do it. First of all, it was stick to stick contact instead of stick to
Right,
hand.
yeah.
We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But for various reasons, it was stick to stick, and basically because of that, you were able to soften it up, and not in the sense that it was less effective, but you had more control and you did more stick to stick contact or grabbing the stick or disarming the stick as opposed to hitting the hand or knocking somebody in the
And
face.
you had more students.
And you have more
if you
students.
if you look at Teddy's training in Blintuak, he always told us, get a light bulb and swing at it and try to get as close as you can to it. Okay, that's your training. One of his students had a small child, and Ted goes over to his house one day and he goes, Teddy, watch what and he's swinging at his kid's head, and Teddy
Ooh.
loses his mind. He's like, oh, are you crazy? He said, well, he goes, I have more incentive. He says, if I hit a light bulb, he said, you can replace a light bulb. He said, you can't replace your kid's head. So, but that's how they were when Ted and Remy and I would cross sticks in Teddy's basement. Because, in Blintuak, Ted always told me, and so did Remy, when you swing, you stop that stick 1 inch from somebody's head.
Mhm.
That way they can never say, oh, I would have dodged it. I would have slipped it. I would have
Got
did
it.
this or
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so first time I went with, I did a summer camp with Tom Bissio, Tom Bissio, and Renee Del Tosa. We were teaching. And Renee wanted to cross sticks because he had heard about Valentuak. And Renee was, crash and bash, and he's a big man, and
Yeah.
back then I wasn't a big fat guy like I am now. Back then I was like 180 pounds, and this man towered over me. And, the first thing he does is, he swings, bam, splits my head open. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I said, no, it's my fault. Teddy always said, never trust a Filipino with a stick. Always always swing and block as if it's for real. So we went back at it, and he was better than me. He was a legitimate grandmaster. I was in my 20s, and he was better than me. So, but he was really impressed with Blintuak. He said, I really would like to meet this Teddy. He says but we touched on the flow because, like Mike said, getting back to what we first talked about. The art was big, but it only had like Dicadina, the flow, some Sinwalis, and a couple little drills. But you just kept adding to them, and that's how the art got big. How you learned more. But because some people thought that they had certain things, like he cons me into going to the summer camp one time. Rocky, I'm going to have all my best people are going to be there. I'm like, okay, cool. He's like, oh, they're good stick fighters and stuff. And this Janessa girl is going to be there, and all these people are going to be there, and they're going to, they're all these outstanding. So they're doing the flow. And they think that they think in modern Irish, they think the flow is this. You're slashing, you're slashing, you're slashing, you're moving, you're flowing, right? That is the furthest freaking thing from the flow. That is a flow drill. It's a drill to get you to flow with your hands. So all these best people, they get the circle going, advanced people only, and they're going to do. Let's see everybody get in a circle and do the flow. Every person gets up there and they're doing this. And I'm like, this is a crock of shit. I come all the way out here for this. So Rocky, your turn. So I go out there and I go just a real quick movement and I stop and I step back, and they're like, well, you'll get it, Rocky. So eventually you'll learn to flow. And I'm like, you stupid sons of bitches. The flow, not to get too Star Wars, okay, but the flow is what guides you.
Yeah.
It's techniques. Boxers have good flow. They don't think, oh, I better bob, oh, I better weave. When a wrestler is chest to chest with you and he sticks his arm down to do some kind of a leg move, he doesn't look and go, okay, yeah, your leg is there, I better put my arm down. No, he feels. He feels your body pressing against him. He feels where your weight is, whether it's on your left or your right. That's the flow. The flow is through all these different techniques that you do. You no longer think. You just do. If you're thinking in a fight, you lost the fight. The fight is over with. If you have to think, it's like me. I haven't been in the ring in years. And a couple of years ago, I was with my boy, and I was like, okay, just throw a punch, and he threw it, and he would have hit me anytime he wanted, because I can see it, but I can't react like I used to, because my body isn't, I don't have that anymore. I'm on a downside, But that's the flow. Modern Energy's flow is not some stupid little drill where you go like this and you pretend to be cutting some guy's wrist every time.
Crusadas crossing.
Yeah, Cruzada.
It's
And
a
that's another
yeah.
thing. Cruzada de Mano is a base art of modernities, and nobody knows. Cruzada de Mano is a dead art. It's a dead art's gone. I've never met anybody that does it.
A
But
lot
it's
that
heavy into
Yep.
the empty hand of modernities that comes from Cruzada. When Remy teaches you to block the kicks and he teaches that crossing motion, that's from Cruzada de Mano. They cross, block, step in. They do a lot of this cross striking. Some people call it hacking, where they hit with this along the side of the head. That's from Cruzada de Mano. And it's a shame that all that stuff is going bye-bye and nobody does it. They don't
one of
even
the
know
things
part of their art.
one of the things that brings to mind, Rocky, is one of my pet peeves actually, which is that and this happens anywhere, when people don't understand something, then they will creatively make a new solution. And a lot of times, if they really understood if they really understood what it was, then they would see that it works. But if a lot of times they additive, there's an additive process that happens. And I've seen it happen a lot, like on the angles of attack and the stuff that people teach. I can watch and I can see, oh, they're adding, like we had, in Modern East, we have a basic 12 angles. And there's some other systems that have 5 or 7 or 21, whatever. I can see that their additive is coming in and being taught as a variation. That's part of the devolution of what we're talking about. Because if you really go back to the basic principles, everything was covered. And I watch people adding and changing, and that's without getting into specifics and technical stuff, there is a tendency for that. It's spec drift. It's a drift.
So in other words, you have the overall, when he came over here, the evolution, adding more, catering to the audience, and now there's additional de-evolution because folks who perhaps didn't really truly understand the
Yes.
context to their understanding is inserting something that wasn't there maybe in the beginning that makes
Right.
sense or whatever.
And a lot of it's context, like using the 12 angles of attack, and actually it's 12 angles of defense, but that's another conversation. But looking at our little chart of 12 angles, you have an inward strike, you have a high, you have an outward strike, high, so on and so forth. Our system, which Remy brought from, I'm not sure which system he brought the 12 angles from, but bottom line is, it was modeled on Spanish armor. and the attacking points were the attacking weak points of where the armor joints would have been. Now, the fun. So you have you have a strike, a thrust coming in, and it's going toward the clavicle. It's going towards the gap of where the armor would be in the Spanish armor.
Okay.
And not understanding the context, if you just blindly doing these things, then a lot of things don't make sense and they can drift. But understanding where it came from, that this was to deal with armor. Okay, well, what's the fundamental behind it? The armor has weak points, but fundamentally, you're doing an inward strike or you're doing an outward strike. If you have a horizontal strike, it's horizontal. Why would it be horizontal? Because if you want to take somebody's head off, you want to go horizontal. If you go diagonal, you get caught up in their body armor.
Right.
So there's all kinds of reasonings behind the things that people maybe didn't understand completely in the first place, or wasn't explained to them
in the first place.
Right? Because essentially, again, going back to seminar and not the one-on-one training, you have a broader stroke. So a lot of subtleties. It's taken me 40 years to understand some of the stuff I'm talking about now. And I went, oh, I get it now. The 40 years younger version of me was just doing it.
Was just doing it now. You got.
It's interesting you say the 12 angles of defense, because that's always been a pet peeve of mine, because a lot of people, why do you don't need 12 angles of attack, and why would you do 12 angles of attack that you obviously the other person is prepping to defend against those 12 angles? So
right.
It's a 12 angles of defense, and it's not science. That angle can be here. Number one could be here. It could be here. It could be here. It could be here. This is all number one.
Right.
And Rene Otosa was a massive man. When he struck at me, his number one was coming down at an angle that I'm not used to. You take a guy, this Top Dog from Eric. This guy is a freaking an animal, man. I mean, he's tall, he's strong. I don't want to be hit by him, and I guarantee you, a number one coming from him is going to be different than a number one coming from Mike, who is about the same height as I am, maybe a little bit taller. So yeah, it's these are angles of defense, not angles of attack.
There are angles of defense, and
somewhere it got changed.
Well, people love to get caught in because the drill is really simple. You do an inward horizontal strike, an outward horizontal strike, and then 3 and 4 is middle. Then you thrust, and then you thrust on an angle, and you thrust on a back angle. Okay. Well, people don't realize if this is let's call this a number one coming in this way. Okay, that's a stick. What if it was a back fist? What if it was somebody's crescent kick? What if it's a roundhouse kick? They're all still a number one. They're coming in on a horizontal plane. You learn how to use them. So just because our technique that we learned traditionally has a downward thrust for our number 6, what if it wasn't a point of a thrust? What if it was the puño? What if it was a hammer fist? What if it's a crescent kick coming down on that angle? It's a diagonal. And you learn that. And basically there's, again, fundamentally, it goes back to the understanding. This is my peeve because I had to translate so much for Remy in the book and all these other things that I had to go to what the basics were. It's not semi-sparring, by the way. It's semi-sparring because you have to do it with an accent.
Semi-sparring.
Yes.
Not semi.
So where'd the name come from? Remy had to describe what he was doing. He was doing
But here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
You're the guy from you two are the first ones I've gotten that clarification on the 12 of defense. Everybody else though is the 12 offense.
First of all,
the offense is there so you can practice the defense.
Got it. Which makes sense.
You have a coach and a student.
Yeah.
The student is doing the defensive moves. The coach is attacking because that's you need to defend against somebody to practice.
You're basically, it's you're defending, and part of your defense is to use that very same strike that they came back at you with as an attack. So it's Remy used to. I mean, it's like he just kind of as he got older, he's like, I'm not going to mess with it. Whatever you want to call it,
Oh,
and
he wasn't going to overcorrect people. Or...
yeah, he didn't want to hurt feelings. For a guy who had a nasty ass temper, and he had a bad temper. I mean, him and I would
No?
scream and holler at each other, uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Mike can tell you that story, but
That's because your
Remy,
family, Rocky.
what's that?
That's because your family.
Yeah, he's yeah, but the thing is, for a man who had this incredible nasty ass temper, he never wanted to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah.
So he would, a lot of times he wouldn't correct something that he would obviously, you could actually look at it and go, what is that guy doing? And
And you would
and
just be like,
Remy be like, oh, never mind him, never mind him.
never.
But shouldn't we go over there and correct him? Oh no, let him do that.
Let him be.
He's happy.
Because you didn't want to embarrass him
Yeah.
Got it.
by
Yeah,
correcting him.
yeah.
But if you were in his, if you, I guarantee you that if you talked to Kelly when he worked with Kelly privately, he probably corrected Kelly all the time.
Oh, of course.
In private, he was
In
always
private, yeah,
forever.
in private.
I mean, I would be so sore after working with him because he constantly hit my arms. He was always hitting the arms, hitting the rib cage and stuff. That's the way he liked to train. But
Yeah.
when we did seminars or anything like that, he didn't even
All
come
that
close.
went away.
It all went away. And I tell you what, his footwork drills. Stand on a picnic table and let him sit there and whack your feet while you're trying to lift them out of the way. That's how he taught footwork. That's how he was taught footwork.
See, and now see that was gone when it. Wow.
That would go over like a lead balloon in here.
Yeah. It would. Just watching him and Ted sometimes. Ted was very good. Tactician. He was his engineer, very smart man, but he was not the fighter. Remy was a street fighter. But watching them two guys cross sticks sometimes, man, you could see the minute Remy was in front of somebody that was good. See, I prided myself on this, and people are going to say, "Oh, Rocky, you're being cocky," but I prided myself on this. When I really started getting good, Remy no longer used his right hand with me. He always went left-handed.
Yeah.
That's when you knew you were achieving something. When the old man couldn't use his right hand against you.
It took me years to realize that's what he was doing. It took me years, and my Taekwondo instructor was a lefty too, so I was learning all this lefty stuff, and I had no idea it was lefty. But Remy would be working the left hand with me, and I'm like, oh.
When him and Ted, and they didn't do it a lot, but we go to Ted's house and we play around a little bit, and Remy would say, "Oh, Teddy, Rocky moves like you," and then I'd be working with Remy, and Teddy say, "Remy, Rocky moves like you," because I kind of adapted to whoever I was working with, But when it was so cool to watch the old man, both of them, because as soon as they weren't fighting, and they're doing friendly stuff, but because they knew each other's level, the second they stepped in front of each other, it's like their whole body sunk down. They hunkered down. You could tell that they were ready. They weren't just
no, they were
they were setting, because they were preparing themselves. They knew what each one was capable of, and they both come from that school of, I'm going to stop this stick 1 inch from your head, Remy, so you better be ready. And Teddy, and it goes without saying, and that was probably some of the most fun times I ever had, was just watching them guys.
Watching those two, yeah. I mean, if you guys, this is for both of you, based on everything you've mentioned, evolution, de-evolution, and for certainly understandable reasons, and no surprise on those reasons, what would you like to see far as evolution or maybe all around improvement in the Martinese community today?
I don't think you can really. It's so big now. It's like
are you saying it's too big to control?
Do you think Tim Hartman's going to listen to Kelly? You think Kelly's going to listen to Dieter? You think Dieter's going to listen to me? You think I'm going to listen to such? It's it's gotten so big. And to be honest, I think they all it all it's. I look at modern East now like this. Tim Hartman is modern Arnis Chongdukwan. Kelly is modern Arnis Hanmukwan.
Yeah.
I'm modern Arnis Mudokwan. It's
Wonderful.
just
Beautiful.
different schools, all
Comic.
Yeah.
doing basically the same thing. All kind of gearing towards going the same direction, trying to go in the same direction, but everybody has a little different path because of how they were taught and when they were taught by the old man.
No,
You
no,
know,
no. Yeah.
so I I think it's
There's going to be stylistic differences even within a system. So
yeah.
modern Arnis was fundamentally a simplification, not watering down, but it was an organizational approach that Remy had to get people to understand the flow. And everybody is different. I'm taller, I'm shorter, I'm heavier. Remy adapted everything that he taught. Heck, at the beginning, he would teach from on. I was LA, SoCal. Okay, he would come and teach us a drill and exercise, and then he'd go off and travel and do his seminars. We would come back, and I'd get together with somebody from the East Coast or Michigan, 6 months later, and we go through the drill that Remy taught us. And damned if he didn't teach them a different variation than he taught us. He never taught anybody in those early years, at least. He never taught anybody the full thing.
The 6 count drill is probably the best attestament to that. You got people who have good footwork with it.
Yep.
They're very linear. Then you got people who are doing it walking around in a circle, and it's like
And you do, and you have Corto and Largo. I mean,
yeah,
you've got all kinds of variations depending upon either did Remy have a hangover that day, joke, or was it the size of the people that we were working with, or the skill sets.
Or do you have to adapt and kind of
He
modify?
had to. He would adapt the drill to the people in that
yeah.
area, and
100%.
also maybe what style were they coming from? Were they coming
But
from Kembo or
all
Judo?
all arts have done that though. Look at
Yeah.
Balintawak. It was a stick, not sword, a stick and dagger art,
Hmm.
and they took the dagger away from Anshan because he was he had a nasty streak to him. He would poke people, not stab them
Mm.
and try to kill them, but he would give them a little poke. He thought it was
Wake up.
funny to kind of hurt people. And they probably had like my dad had Napoleonic complex. My dad was
Yeah.
a short guy, but he was built like a fire plug, and he was Ukrainian grappler, judo master, and he was doing catch wrestling before people even knew it. My dad was born 1934. I mean, he was
Hmm.
wrestling in India, and he fought at the Snake Pit in England and stuff. So he was doing this stuff before anybody even heard of Gracie's.
Hmm.
Um, but because he was short, he had that complex, and I think that's what Anshan had. So they took the dagger away, but it's so easy to see the dagger when you're working with Ted because one, we never grab with the left hand because you can't grab when you have a dagger there. So that left hand
Makes
is always monitoring this way.
yeah.
But what people didn't understand, and this is the sad part, is nobody stayed with Ted long enough. Is Ted and I occasionally we would work the dagger in. You know, Ted would say, "Okay, let's do a little bit of dagger work," and he never did. He might have done some dagger work with Dave Hatch. Dave Hatch has probably got the second most time with Ted. I trained for 20 some odd years with Ted, 3 days a week,
Mm.
and then well for like the first 10 years, 3 days a week. And then it dropped down. The funny thing is because Remy and I had a big falling out, and he wanted people to learn Balintawak, but he didn't want them to learn it from me, so he sent them to Ted. And then these same people were coming back and telling people, "Well, Rocky doesn't do Balintawak anymore. I don't see him there." Well, that's because I don't have to go there 3 times a week anymore.
Right,
I
right.
did it. I did go 3 times a week, 6 hours a week for 20 years or for 10 years. By the time these guys started, I was coming around once a month,
Yeah.
once every couple of months, just to polish up on stuff, but all of a sudden, because you're not there, you don't do it anymore.
I know. Yeah. If you're
They,
in that
they,
same.
they do so, but yet then I say, well, let me see some dagger work. Well, there's no dagger in Balintawak.
Uh,
Uh, Dude, it comes from San Miguel Eskrima. There's dagger work in there. You just got to know how to look for it, or have been taught it properly.
I got a
So
question that came in. Do you guys teach to strike the closest target with your longest weapon?
Mm, it's actually six to me. It's six of one, half dozen the other. You go for whatever is available.
It's called the flow.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it, basically, if you're using your longest weapon to their closest weapon, you're going Largo.
Yeah.
In a sense. So, I, I've heard this a lot over the last 10 years or so on different forums. I hear people talking about, the positioning of the weapon and stuff. But I was just always taught by Remy and Ted, take what's available. You
You
know.
take what's available, but also you run drills. You drill to get the skill, right? You run drills and options and variations. But when it comes to reality, what's your body distance? What's your body angle? What's the difference in the reach versus the other person? I mean, there is no one thing that you say, oh, you go long for short. There's no simple answer like that. You do what works.
Yeah. Remy one time, and I would show this at seminars, and you could see it would pique a lot of people's interest. He'd say, Rocky, sometimes if you're going to accept a challenge and you duel, he says, you got your stick up, your hand up, your stick up. And as soon as they say go, he says, it's not a swing, it's a quick poke to the eye, just boom.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that ended half the fights.
Yeah.
They weren't this swinging and all this crazy stuff. You're not going to do all these disarms and all this other stuff.
Mm.
But then some people say, well, why learn it? Well, because it teaches you body mechanics and anatomy. You know how the body works, how it doesn't work. You know that, hey, if this goes to the ground and I happen to see that hand and it's sitting like this, I know that this is a lock and it hurts. How do I know that? Well, because I've done it up here a dozen times with the stick and this, that, and the other. So it's more about teaching you how the body works and stuff. An actual stick fight, if you talk to anybody who's had real stick fights, they last seconds.
There's a difference
You know,
between sport and self defense and survival.
Mm.
They are three completely different worlds. May come in with the same gear and our arsenal, but what you're doing and the intent is completely different.
As far as the intent, right, 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 right.
And, yeah, and what how you use those weapons and how you use that arsenal that you have,
and you
completely
can
different.
never really base anything on. I mean, there are guys out there that, and at my best, when I was 21, 22 years old, when I was in good shape and was fairly ripped. My son and I are built a lot alike. If you look at when you met me, nobody believed I was 15 years old at that first summer camp,
I didn't.
especially that 28-year-old girl. but
Way back to,
yeah,
After that, yeah,
um, boy, it is what it is. But I was really well built. I was a real well built young guy, and I mean, I started bouncing in the bar when I was 17.
hmm
Um, but there are guys in my best day back then that I could not beat if we geared up like the Dog Brothers do. You know, they just kill me. They'd walk right through me. But those same people I that I'm talking about that I have in mind, I would never have feared them in a street fight or in other aspects of fighting.
mm.
Um, because like Mike just said, it's three totally different things.
hmm
And you can have some guys out there that are just phenomenal, hardcore Dog Brother style stick fighters that will just light you up, but they may not be good street fighters.
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, because like you guys said, priorities, intent, and need. I mean,
And being able to flip that switch,
that switch. I mean, cars.
you know.
Here's a nug for you guys. Well, so so Marnice, the way it's being taught today, is it being more just the art form? Like nobody's making fighters. Is that, and I mean, is that, could it be where you could make fighters, or is it by design
Yeah, I
with
mean,
de-evolution?
Kelly Warden's produced some pretty badass guys. Um, I don't know. I haven't met him, but I think Tim's got a couple of fighters. I got a couple of guys. They're getting old and long in the tooth, but unfortunately, my top student is fighting pancreatic cancer right now. But
Sorry to hear.
Sorry about that.
Remy, yeah, he went on a number of tours. He was an attorney, so he could get time off. So he went on he went to Europe with me and Remy 3 or 4 times, and he's a former collegiate wrestler and stuff. And even though he's a lawyer, kind of like Mark Denny, you're like, oh, lawyer, what can this guy do, man? He'd light you up in a heartbeat, you know. So yeah, there's guys out there producing fighters, and unfortunately, one thing I learned about martial arts is the deceitfulness. There are instructors out there who produce really tough people. And how do they produce really tough people? By teaching them in ways that they were never taught. Now, I'm not going to drop names, but Remy used to talk about a guy who used to play the tuba while Remy was out street fighting. And later on, he's telling everybody about all the street fights he had and how he was so deadly and he, killed this person, killed that person. And then his students believe him, and then they train really hard and they get hurt and they become tough because, I mean, any of us could do it. I mean, let's say none of us ever even put a padded stick in our hand before. But we could tell people that didn't know us, man, this is how we fought every day. It was, we hit hard, we do this, and you got to do it. Now your students, and the thing is, that makes you look good because people are going to go, oh, man, Rocky must be a badass. Look at his 3 or 4 students he's got, man. They'll clean your clock. Yeah, well, that's because Rocky put them through hell that he never went through.
No, understood. Yeah, no.
And that's big in the Filipino arts. That's huge in the Filipino arts, I remember this old man, I killed so many people. I cut off so many heads, I can't even remember. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Anchan killed 2 people in self-defense in the Philippines and went to prison both times. But this guy, he's lopped off so many heads he can't remember. Same time period, same area, but he walks free. But he's killed so many people he can't remember how many, so they fall for it. And when you're young, like when I was young, I fell for a lot of that stuff. I really believed some of the stories some of these guys were telling. And then as I got older, I was like,
you're young and impressionable. I mean, so it's easy. I mean, we've all believed some story or another from instructors, and then you find out that they're not. Renee saying Dean Franco played the spoons. He wasn't supposed to let that out, though.
It's better than saying you like the spoon.
Oh, how about washboard, Dean?
True.
How are you on the washboard, Dean?
What's that?
How are you on the washboard?
Pretty good.
Yeah, if you play spoons, you should be doing good on the washboard.
Could be a video or 2 out there, but I'm not going to say. But you mean?
I got a question for you, Dean. What?
Sure.
I mean, I know you've done a lot of stuff. One of the things I'm really interested in is the Piper.
Oh,
knife. But what is your? Are you like? Somebody said you were lightning scientific. Is that
No. I've never dabbled in that. Have interviewed people on here, so I'm mostly KI.
Okay.
Illustrissimo, Avenir, Callis, which is under the umbrella of KI. Burton.
Yeah, I know you.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Burton. Yeah. Oh my
so God. I'm definitely edge weapon centric. You know what I mean?
All those people, I haven't seen those people in since the mid '80s. A lot of them don't even remember me. Probably. I mean, I did a couple things with Paul Vunak. And his name just popped up. I'm like, oh, is he still out there? Because I haven't heard from him. And last time I seen him was like 88, 87, 88.
No, he's still out there. I don't know how he's doing, how well he's doing, but I know he's still out there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't. Yeah. It's just everybody I know is either real old or gone. I don't know.
I'm just so glad you finally came on. I mean, because everybody was saying so I'm just happy that, and I think.
Well, I'm not the most liked person in modern Arnis because, my wife says all the time, when I was younger, she says, you got to be more diplomatic towards people. You can't just tell
Oh, that's
somebody they
yes.
suck,
Yeah.
And Remy used to get mad at me because I would be like, Remy, that guy sucks, man. And,
You're
Oh,
from
because you
Michigan,
were
buddy.
outspoken and. But I don't know.
yeah.
But I think you're bringing a lot of. You brought a lot of content. Both of you actually that I never heard in previous Marnies episodes before. And dare I say, some of them trying to make what they do, maybe more relevant. And I can certainly understand, that. I mean, but there's definitely things that you guys have brought up that I've not heard in previous interviews. Like I had no idea that he was full on a Balintawak guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was probably 80% of his fighting was
Yeah.
and it was the sub art too. It wasn't original Blintock. It was Monkal and Merengues. And
Moringa.
there's a little bit of me and Sam Buitt got into a little bit of argument about that because I know why. In original Blintock, you never grab the stick. Never. We never grabbed the stick. You just monitor it. Okay. For one, that used to be a dagger. So you
Mm.
don't you can clip it a little bit, but you don't. Now, if how do I want to put this? If you're training under me, and you've trained under me for years, and my specialty was we don't let anybody grab our stick because we don't grab the stick and we don't let anybody grab our stick. What would be the best way to beat me was to get good enough to grab my stick, right? Take what my strong point is
Right.
and exploit it.
Yeah, if you can negate your movement.
So Monkal and Merengue, when they broke off from Anshan, they practice a lot of grabbing of the stick, and that's why Remy's block and lock came in. Is he's constantly pulling that stick into his body. You reach out and grab that stick and pull it in because that's how it is in a fight. It isn't when people do a number one in a street, they don't stop it and wait for you to do it. They swing through.
Mm.
So you got it's like block, check, counter. Correct? You see that all the time in modern knees. And not really. The more you train, it's block the stick up front. Because if you go here and that guy's swinging all the way through, you're never going to probably, even if you hit his hand, he's still going to come through at force.
Oh, just momentum
The
alone.
momentum, and it's going to also collapse this secondary hand, and that strike's going to come in. So it's more of this type
Mm.
of a block, and that's how it is in Blintwalk. Is
That's why I
there's
never
no,
understood sombrata in the middle range where it's swinging like that. You would put your hand in there.
yeah, well, it's
Footwork.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But in sword,
Oh,
they
you're right.
remove it. After you do it, they remove it. So now he's free with his sword to just cut you.
yeah, to
Yeah.
follow
Right.
through with
So
that.
I never understood sombrata. Okay, first of all, if you swing really through, chances are I'm not going to even get my hand in there, control it. Okay, because you're going to pull the tip through unless I really get inside the gate. But that's
Yeah,
different context. Now, when I do block with sword, I'm going to check it, but then I'm going to remove my hand and take the control mechanism of the sword.
yeah. And see, in Blintwalk, Teddy always said you monitor that sword. If you're doing
Hell
dagger,
yeah! If it's edge weapons, you better
if it's an
believe
edge
I'm
weapon,
getting
but
monitored.
you have to monitor it. You can't just, of course, you can't necessarily grab it because you can't grab that blade, but you have to maneuver your hand and
Yeah,
so
but
you get
definitely
into a position.
monitor, like you said, for sure, right?
But yeah, I agree with you on that. There's some
Yeah,
funny, but a
yeah.
lot of it is common sense, just common sense.
That's why I never. Yeah, I don't want to digress here, but yeah, some of those drills, just meant that like they just didn't make sense to me. Just,
No, you gotta. I tell people all the time when I teach certain drills, I'm like, I try to keep all my drills as realistic as possible. Like, you'll notice that we move our body a lot back and forth like a boxer.
mm.
And Anchon boxed a little bit, Teddy boxed a little bit. So, and you look at Bobby Tabuada, and you can see that man has done some boxing.
Oh no, no. I mean, I was in front.
And, and
His rotations.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, he so. Uh, it makes sense that you would bob and weave a little bit and stuff. When you're you don't just stand there and do this motion with the stick and keep the upper body all, stiff. You have to move. Plus, it's how you generate power.
Mm.
When you get that upward strike, if you're striking upwards, you drop that leg down very similar to the way Tyson in the early days
Yeah,
drops down and
yeah,
he comes up
yeah.
1-2, hit to the body and then up. Well, that's the same thing with the stick when you're striking up. You don't just do this.
Yeah.
You drop down and bring that
Yeah, you're
power up.
definitely for torque, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a um I think one of the things that I truly like about Balintawak is the power, the power base. It's and Remy was a powerful hitter. I mean,
Mhm.
he had incredible strength, man. If he hit you, you stayed hit. It was you knew you weren't going to just take it lightly
Mm. All
and move
that
forward.
rotate. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I see people with these little tiny twig sticks. You know, I always wonder, well, what are you going to do with that other than piss somebody off really bad?
Yeah, like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly
You're
it.
gonna you're gonna give them a stinging sensation, and like you said, you're just gonna piss them more off, right?
yeah, yeah. I don't. Last thing I want to do when I'm fighting somebody is piss them
We don't
off.
like grabbing, but
Mm.
we're grabbing on locks and disarms. Ted would say we don't rely on grabbing, but we're grabbing on locks and disarms.
Mm,
From Tim.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of know what he's saying. I don't know if it's a typo or what, but yeah. Uh, most of our, with Teddy, most of your disarms or the so-called defanging the stake stuff is, your disarms come from striking the hand. There's not a whole lot of intricate disarming and stuff. It's a very simplistic, extremely complex system.
Mm.
And that's where it gets people because it's like we don't have a ton of drills.
Mm.
We just have we have reactions for everything. You react, you move, you move, you move, you move, you move.
See, I
However,
would like that. Like the it's just the way I'm as a student. It's nothing against those that have levels, like a lot of levels
yeah,
and like that. Rich Parsons was showing me some stuff, and I had a great appreciation for it because he wasn't giving me memorization. You know what
yeah,
I mean? It was really, yeah. So I enjoyed the little I did with him. You know what I mean?
yeah. The only problem is this is not for everybody,
Mm.
because uh, Rich is an engineer. He's a smart guy.
Mm.
Um, most Teddy was an engineer.
Yeah.
Um, Remy, believe it or not, I mean, yeah, he didn't have no real formal training, but he was not a dumb man. He saw things.
Oh, definitely not. If the way
He
he succeeded over here. Oh yeah, he was definitely.
when he saw
Mm.
when a stick came at him or a punch came at him, he saw 400 different scenarios playing out in his head. But it's so fast, you don't think about it. The flow just takes over and you do it.
Mm.
And you know that's a level that some people can train for decades and never get, unfortunately.
Or never
You know.
mastered, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And sometimes it's their fault, and sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes it's just not meant to be.
yeah,
I always, I've always been told I was a fast learner. Now, I think the reason why is because I started off so young, like I said at the beginning of the
yeah,
conversation.
makes
You
sense.
can't go to an 8-year-old and say put 80% of the weight on the left foot and 20. I don't know what the hell 80% is.
No, no, not for
So
me.
so you just do it and then I follow you. And to this day, at 60 years old, if you say, "Hey, Rock, let me show you some of this Piper stuff." I don't want you to go now, Rock, put your shoulder at a 45-degree angle this way and just show it to me. Let me run through it and then you can tweak it for me because I learned through osmosis
Yeah,
because
yes,
that's how I always learned, you know.
yeah, no, and some
Mhm.
people, yeah, different people learn. So, what do you guys wrap up here? Like, what do you guys like? What would you like to see, like, far as Marnie's future? Like, would you like to see people try to work together for the younger generation? Would you like to
Yeah.
see some of the politics just end? That's quite ridiculous, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, that's all, shit in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up first. Um, it's,
Yeah.
and none of that stuff ever going to happen. there's people out there. I mean, I have had my little wars with different people.
Mm-hmm.
I try to get along as much as I can with everybody. I like Dan Anderson. I like Kelly. I like Tim Hartman. I don't. Do I agree with everything Dan does and Kelly and Tim? No. Um, and they have different. Some of them guys don't even talk to each other. They just
Yeah,
absolutely hate each other, and that's on them. If that's how they want to be. That's I don't have a problem with that because
we're
just
we're
try to
dealing
try
with
to keep me
people.
out of it.
We're dealing with people, and
Yeah,
it's a
Yeah.
typical variation on
um,
any
And and,
any
and
any subject, any topic. You can be talking religion or politics or martial arts,
and I
and
pissed away.
you're gonna get the full range of people, the full range of opinions. You're gonna get some really great people, some real jerks.
I pissed away a lot of years being pissed off at the world because of
Yeah,
what
well,
Remy
and
did
you
to me.
learn that that's called wisdom.
Yeah, but the problem is that wisdom took me 40 years to get. I didn't get it in a couple of years.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
sadly, but unfortunately, sometimes that's what it takes.
you know how many phone calls I got when Remy passed away? I mean,
Mm.
people were calling me. I can show you emails. I still got them. I had tons of emails, and I still get emails. People. I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to get wrapped up in all that. I mean, I saw people that I remember them being green belts, and like 5 years later, they're fourth degree black belts or
fourth degree
whatever.
black. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just where's this rank and stuff coming from? And then people have said, well, why don't you join my organization? We're big, and we would gladly we would
We're
work
glad we
hap-
promote you to
yeah,
10.
to 10th, yeah. And it's like, no, you know what, I'm a fifth degree black belt in Remy. That's the highest I'll ever go. That's
There
the
you go,
highest
though.
I'll
But you
be.
stayed true to what he gave you, and you didn't seek any bonus.
It's
yeah,
I,
That's admirable.
I'm never gonna go higher. I don't care if 10 of if there's 20 datus out there and they're like, oh, Rocky, it's a lifetime achievement.
Yeah, but
You're
you're only fifth, but you probably the vast of knowledge that you have way from way back probably exceeds those who are eight,
Well, not to be
nine.
cocky, but that's one of the things that I always said too was
Mhm.
there's not too many of them that I would
Yeah, right on, Brian.
feel are going to give me something to test on. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. So
again, they could beat my ass. Everybody wants to fight you now. Everybody. I just had a guy, he's 8 years younger, but he's in good shape. I pissed off one of his friends or whatever because something on Facebook because we argue back and forth because he's a liberal and I'm a conservative, and so we call each other. But at the end of the day, we like each other. I mean, we're both Buffalo Bill fans and both modern these guys. He used to come to some of my seminars back in the day. But he also, Facebook will call me a stupid son of a bitch, and I call him a dumbass liberal. Shut your freaking mouth. And the other people, they're like, you owe him an apology. I'll fight you anytime. Oh, you want to fight me now, man? Dude, I got 2 bad knees and 100 pounds overweight. If you can't beat my ass, you better beat your own ass because but it's because they just don't realize that that's how we are. I mean,
yeah,
I'll call him a son of a bitch, but if you call him a son of a bitch in front of me, I don't know, you're probably going to have to fight the both of us. And it's
yeah,
probably the same way with him. We haven't seen each other in person in 20 years, but it's just, you're like Mike said, you're dealing with people, and it all goes back to how would you like to see modern Ernest? I don't really know, and to be honest, in some ways, don't really care because it's
that's
too much
right.
effort to think about all this stuff. And
Right.
I think people like Tim should keep doing what he's doing. And I think people like Dan Anderson and Bram Frank, fucking Bram's got a lot of knowledge. His body's giving out. I'm getting older and stuff,
I
but
know his knives, right?
yeah, yeah. I love his knives. I tell you what, man. And the thing is, I use his knives constantly on my farm. I'm always. It's one of the best tools. I mean, yeah, I know they're designed for fighting and whatnot, but
No, no, no.
I burn through 2 or 3 of his knives a year. I just destroy his
That's
knives,
good stuff. His
because
knives.
I'm using them all the time on my tractor or whatever. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't know, guy. I would like it to just do what all the other arts are doing, survive.
Yeah, well, manifest,
Give
survive.
up on give up on some of the bullshit though with Remy as far as him being a god type. Uh, I say all the time, one of the greatest martial artists I ever met. Far from being a good man. You know?
I've heard, yeah, I've heard things he wasn't the
The
greatest.
things that he did to me and what he put me through, and his own kids.
No, I've heard,
You know,
yeah, I've heard.
so
Yeah.
but that's how all people are, really. I mean,
But I
Yeah,
wish, but I'm definitely agree with you. We sometimes folks make like these godlike figures, and it's like, come on now, you know what I mean? Come on. Yeah.
yeah. He just now, was he gifted from God? I do believe that, because, like Mike said, this man could just walk into a freaking any club and take it over, and
yeah.
in a good way. In a good way,
Yeah.
everybody be laughing and joking and having a good time. You're like, and he don't even speak their language. That's a gift. That's a
No, one hundred
gift.
percent. That's definitely a gift that to be able to pull that off. Like you, and I've heard that numerous times in previous interviews. So, what do you say,
Yeah.
you, Mike? What do you want to see as far as the overall improvement of the Marinese community?
God, much as I'd love to see everybody just get along, shall we say?
I know, yeah.
You know, pragmatically, and my experience says that it's not that easy.
No, I don't think so.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
it would be nice to
Okay.
see the concepts um, appreciated. But we have it. You've got Dieter, you've got Tim, you've got organizations out there. So it's not basically it's accomplished for me. It's like what I started out to do in the early '80s. We did it.
Yeah.
Great,
I would
thanks,
say so.
guys. Now don't screw it up and kill it. But it's going to evolve and it's going to change. And because also culturally, it's going to change. It's going to be different here than it is in Germany, than it is in
Sure.
Japan. I mean, it's going to adapt to whatever cultural influences are required of it.
Ethos, body type, size,
And
ages.
also, I'll go back to intent. Are you talking about sport,
Mm,
self-defense, or war, survival? They're three different things. The same art tools, same tools. So how you use it, I'd love to see it survive in a positive way.
I wouldn't mind seeing some people out there just acknowledge, and this isn't for me,
mm-hmm.
because I really had nothing to do with it, other than,
Mhm.
I got conned into going a week early and worked my ass off in a freaking West Virginia heat, with no air conditioning and stuff.
Those 15-year-olds, they're young
Yeah,
and strong and stupid.
but guys like Mike, and this is not, not kissing his ass. I got nothing out of it, but um, what he did, being the master or one of the masterminds behind that first camp,
Mm.
would all would Filipino martial arts as a whole be as big as it is now, had somebody not had the mindset to create that first summer camp,
Oh, you mean the
real
subsequent ones
camp.
following it? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because Danny had seminars.
Oh,
Hell,
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Leo was doing seminars. They were doing a few seminars a year. They might get 50, 60. How many people? You had like over 100 people, didn't you, at that first summer camp?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a,
for 2 weeks.
for 2 weeks. That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unheard of. You don't see.
No, no, for two
Yeah,
weeks, and I think he probably set the trend for.
yeah, but
You can't
what I'm
say
getting at is guys like Mike. Um, Even though I know somebody I don't particularly, have a lot of good things to say about, Jeff Arnold, but he was your partner and he helped put that shit together, and you guys ran with it. And yeah, ultimately Remy was the one teaching, but he didn't have to know how to put it together. He
No.
had no idea who to go and rent this former Elvis Presley camp from. And uh, you know, once that happened, all of a sudden, Black Belt Magazine the next year, you start seeing Danny has a 2 week camp. Renee's got a
mountain.
2 week camp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Key, and then of course,
Guy got camps.
yeah, and then of course they started dwindling back down, because the 2 weeks was hard for people to get
Yeah,
off,
what were the
working
weeks?
and
And now
stuff.
what you're seeing is what 2 3 days, right?
Yeah, yeah, they call it a camp now, and it's really 3 days in the lobby of a
Yeah.
hotel somewhere. Um,
More
but that's
comfortable.
cool. Yeah, it's more comfortable. But uh, I tell you what, I that was probably one of the, I don't know. To me, that was a major turning point, that first 2 week summer camp, because it just got it got the word out. It was all over the magazines, and then before you know it, all these other big guys, big names, were doing it, and then the art. We were. I don't know if you how when you started Filipino martial arts, Dean, but in the mid '80s, we were kind of like BJJ is now.
Hmm.
We were sought after. The Navy SEALs. They were coming to every.
Oh, no
You go.
kidding. Really?
They wanted to learn our knife fighting.
Hmm.
And
Ah,
the thing is they found out about our knife fighting, and now they're better than we are at it because they use it.
yeah, yeah, right, right.
That pisses a lot of people off. People go, "Oh,
Well,
I'm
they're
a
not just
Paquita
playing
Tercia
artsy
guy."
games. I mean,
Yeah, dude, yeah, you could be good with a knife. I'm not saying you're not. You're a Paquita guy. You guys sleep with your knives. But
mm,
the point is if you're an active SEAL guy and you've been doing this for years, chances are you actually used your
yeah,
knife.
yeah. If you've been,
Because let's face it, when you're behind enemy lines and there's only 5 of you, you probably don't want to shoot a gun and make a lot of noise.
mm,
So these guys get up close and personal and they use it. So, but when they saw the Filipino arts and they saw this knife fighting that was like nothing anybody else had, Paul Vunek was just eating it up out
oh
there on the
yeah,
West Coast, and I kept tell Remy, I said, Remy, we got to get out to San
yeah,
Diego
you
and
gotta
stay
get,
out
you
there
gotta get
more,
part of this.
and but he didn't want Remy didn't want anything to do with California too much. I don't know if it's because of Stockton and all the
I'm
screamadors
sure
out
you had a
there. I
competition.
mean,
If I had,
he was out there with Mike and stuff, but
Hmm.
um, God, he was so big in Michigan, which is odd
Yeah.
because how the hell does a guy? I mean, you can see being big on the east or west coast coming into the country. How the hell do you end up in Michigan?
mm,
I mean, we were a stronghold for him for years,
that'll be
and
the
some
competition. I
let
think
me tell
Pop's
you
going for
something. Some of the Flint guys,
Yeah.
some of those guys, he passed on. Jim Power, Mike Cribbs, Jeff Owens. These guys will put an ass whipping on you with a stick, and nobody's ever heard of them.
Hmm.
Rich Parsons, he's getting a little bit of acknowledgement now because he's out there running around with Tim, but um, you know, uh, those guys that he trained under, that Rich trained under in Flint, and there's some heavy hitters out there, and they just flocked to Remy's art, and
Yeah.
they're no bullshit guys. And
Mm.
it's like Remy had them and he loved them, but he wanted to keep us all secret too. He didn't want us going out. And when if
Oh, did you like
he
doing your own thing?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mike
Yeah.
Morton. Do you remember Mike Morton?
Mm.
Mike? He
Yeah.
was a badass, man. He was one of the first to go balls out stick fighting full contact, hardly
Mhm.
any pads at all. And he's built like a twig. I think he's 135 pounds. He was the first summer camp, and he was just, and he was a great fighter. But Remy was like, Rocky, stay away from Rocky, stay, because he didn't like to see that. He didn't want people to see anybody getting hurt doing the Filipino
Mm.
arts, and he wanted to take arts that were notorious for being violent. Filipino arts are violent arts. They're
Mhm.
not sport arts. And he wanted to take all that away and have people train and have fun, and at the end of the day, go home and be warm and loving and have all their fingers and toes.
Mhm.
And he really disliked that full contact stuff and the hardcore fighting and stuff.
And that's why it was effective when he set it up so that it was not such a damaging
Oh,
art.
keeping people for the long term. I mean,
But
keeping
then
people.
he had his guys. He had Mike and a few of his guys out on the West Coast, the guys up here in Michigan. He had his fighters. It was like he wanted to keep us in a cage, you
Well,
know. And
it was also a little bit political, and I have to say Filipino aspect of it also. For example, Danny Nosanto's school was only a few miles away from my school, but he refused to allow me to hook up with Danny.
yeah.
So, um, and it was the same story in different locations. So there
Well,
was a
the
certain
book
cultural
issue,
thing. Hmm?
is what really got Remy fumed with Danny. When they
Man,
were at Madison Square Garden, and he sat down with he sat down with Danny, and you need to write a book. You're Bruce Lee's top guy. You got to write a book, write a book, write a book. So Danny wrote a book, put everybody in it but Remy. So
Oh, on Filipino martial arts.
yeah, so
ouch.
yeah, there was some stinginess to that,
Oh, yeah,
but
but for him to tell Mike not to go I mean, that I don't like hearing. You know what I mean?
Well,
Well,
he did
and
it
then
to a lot of people. You
he
know how
did
many
it.
people he told not to train with me? I goddamn guarantee you, half the
Yeah.
guys
Yeah,
out there that are now,
it's
they won't
unfortunate.
train with me.
At one point, I was doing a workshop, and I had Eric Lee there and a bunch of other name people. And Graciela Casillas came by, and she's trained with us for a few days. But that was as close as Remy would allow us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
I wouldn't. I
unfortunate.
wouldn't have
Dan's a
done
great
well
guy.
with
I've talked to him
it.
in
Yeah.
years since. He's a great guy, and there's no issue there. It's just a thing.
See, that's where
Yeah.
a lot of my fights with Remy came in because I have friends that were Paquita Terci. I was surrounded by it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, and I would train, and he'd tell me not to, and I would just
Do it anyway.
do it anyways,
Yeah, I
and
wouldn't have lasted long either. I would. Yeah, like that wouldn't sit well with me.
It
Yeah.
doesn't.
yeah, it does, and the the way he would do it though a lot of times is he would tell people, "You have everything he has. You don't need to train with that. You have all that."
Yeah,
But Remy
And
didn't have all of it though.
they would. The thing is they were dumb enough to fall for it.
That's what I
well,
mean.
Well, Remy says I have everything he has. Remy
Yeah,
says I don't need to train with
yeah,
this
yeah.
person or that person.
you're hearing this from a person that you respect, both as a person and also martial arts wise. So yes, you're younger and impressionable.
No, you're younger, impressionable. Yeah, so easy to say. Yeah,
These days, we'd look at it being older and wiser, emphasizing
you're
both.
like, huh?
We go, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, but okay, what you hiding?
yeah,
But the truth
yeah.
of
That's
it
why I
is,
look at it. Like they're covered, right? Like they have a weakness, and they're just
whatever the case may be.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like that fear of whatever, right?
But
Yeah.
some of it is cultural, and I will say this, and I've said it before: the Koreans had it; they were
Oh
smart.
no, I'm not saying it's just FMA. Oh yeah,
Well, no, but the Koreans were very smart with what they did with Taekwondo. They took all these different schools
the
and they
business
said, we're going
model.
to label them all Taekwondo. You can do Budokan, you can do Shamakwan, you can do other whatever, but you're still Taekwondo. If the Filipinos in martial arts could ever get past the, I don't want to say it in a negative way, but the bickering and the conflict and
Mm,
the disagreement and work together,
I know, I know.
there it would be,
But if it hasn't happened by now, I'm sorry to
No.
say.
it would be incredible.
Yeah,
It'd
it's
be,
not going. But
It's
it
not.
is more organized. You have to give
I
it
think
that.
it's
Though.
that's just
It's
because of the internet and just overall just improvement in organizational structure, social media, just technology. I think that's what they're. But will it ever come? I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years after my discussion, and I can tell you right now, we're no closer than we were 6 years ago.
oh,
So it's
I
just
don't doubt that.
yeah.
You see the bickering just constantly. But
Boy, what I could have done with the technology 40 years ago. Ha!
oh yeah,
yeah, I know.
But
But like you
anyway,
said, the Taekwondo man, they got it. Their business model was
their business model
pristine,
is
well,
brilliant.
pristine.
I wasn't. I was a little, I was half joking when I said, you're going to have Madarnis, Hanmukwan, Madarnis, Mudakwan, because really that's what you do have. Like for me, for instance, I just absolutely refuse to teach the Anyo forms. I'm not teaching watered down Shotokan forms and calling them
Good for
Filipino
you.
martial arts.
I would,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you see my guy, I have one form with 6 loops. Okay, in other words, it's one big ass long form,
Mm-hmm.
and you teach it in little sections according to a rank.
Mm-hmm.
But all my moves look like Filipino techniques. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this because that's not Filipino. Filipino looks more like silat, looks more like kung fu. And Remy took Shotokan forms,
Mm-hmm.
and
Why would he? Wow. Okay.
because he's a fifth degree black belt in Shotokan.
Got it.
So
Makes sense.
and it's organized and it's easy to teach, and
Definitely organized, battle
the
structure.
vast amount of his people were karate based.
It's true. It's
So
true.
they caught on to it real quick. You got to remember back in the day in the 70s and 80s
It was karate. Yeah.
when it was all karate, and then you're going to try to get a guy to do this nice
No,
flowing
this
motion, and
circular kind of.
it's not going to
It
happen.
didn't
So
relate.
Understood for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
he saw the need and he fixed it, and that's all fine and dandy. But I'm not interested in it.
No, I would. I don't know if I would be.
Another aspect of the forums was that at the time we were doing a lot of tournament competitions, So we'd be traveling around and doing these regionals and so on and so forth. And there were some people out there, like Jeff Arnold was one, doing forms
Hmm.
competition, Arnie's style, and
Yep.
creating new forms. And so Remy came back from these competitions and tournaments realizing that he needed to have a structure of forms so that people could compete in the
They could
tournaments.
compete. Right.
Well, the whole West Coast demo team, a lot of them worked with Remy.
And Remy worked on the first couple años. He did it on my training floor in LA, in Hollywood. He sat there and worked on them. I watched him.
Yep.
Exactly those the first couple forms. It
Right.
was
This is form number 1.
Yep.
yeah.
Right. This is form number 2.
But
Remy, what are you doing?
you know the funny
Remy, what
thing,
are you doing?
Dean?
I'm working on forms.
The funny thing is, Dean, is he would do these forms like he be at a seminar. Oh, Rocky, I want to show you the new form Año number 3. But then you see him 6 months later, and Año 3 is different
Yeah.
because
Don't
he
you
forgot.
tell me?
Because he forgot it. He,
Yeah,
for, he
on the spot. He just
yeah, because he when he first made it, he did it like you said, Mike, on your living room floor. He comes up with Año 1 and 2, and then because he doesn't really have no use for
This is a
forms.
great point from Kelly. Karate was a donor art to FMA.
Yeah,
In Minor Niece's case, right? Can't argue
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Kelly's got a good way with
Well, guys, I got to run.
putting shit together.
Appreciate it.
No, it's been this was awesome, and now hopefully, well, Rocky won't be adverse to coming on the show.
Yeah, get his butt out here.
You know what I
Yeah,
do? I got to
I
get
get
you in.
I get my other knee next 2 weeks, so
Oh, 2 weeks. All
I'll
right.
have two
Good
new
luck with
knees.
that.
So.
Yeah. Well, God bless and good luck with that. And if I don't talk to you guys, obviously have a wonderful, wonderful Merry Christmas and Happy
Yeah,
New Year.
you too.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
You too.
I appreciate it. I watched your stuff for years, off and on and off and on.
I'm just so glad you finally came on. Yeah.
Hey, Rocky.
Yeah.
Hey, get Jeff Owens on there one day if you can. He goes back to the 70s too.
I tell you what. How about we bring you and Jeff on?
I'm cool with that. Jeff is a great
Talk to
guy.
Jeff. Talk to Jeff, and you let me know when you recover from the knee, and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, I go in January 8th. So
Yeah. I'm on,
well,
man. I know. But yeah, definitely let me know for sure.
okay, cool.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one, man. Appreciate it.
Have a great one.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.
Gotcha. There we go. Awesome. That wraps up 526. Definitely a little longer one, but I thought it was great. Stuff I didn't know, or maybe I don't recall from previous Minor Niece interviews, but I think I would recall some of the stuff though. Pretty good memory as far as the previous interviews go. So awesome. But anyway, next. If I don't talk to you guys or see you guys, obviously Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. But I think next Wednesday, Marshall met. I think me and Renee will be doing something. It was just us. So the next show would be Wednesday, and I'm going to actually ask him if we can even do it earlier. But yeah, hopefully in the afternoon Wednesday. But as always, you'll see it pinned there. So I'll have to talk to Renee. But at any rate, all right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. Now, hopefully, we'll see some of you guys Wednesday. Take care.